welcome to Brickwall Unplugged. I'm Sam, that's Gray. We saw the new horror, drama, thriller, true crime thing, Red Rooms, aka Chambre Rouge, or whatever. And the two of us are going to have a little conversation about it. If you feel like it, you can eavesdrop on us. We won't hold it against you.
Ce qu'on va tenter d'établir ici, c'est que Ludovic Chevalier est l'auteur de ces meurtres, qu'il a filmé pour un auditoire privé, prêt à payer pour voir ça en direct dans ce qu'on appelle des Red Rooms.
We'll stay spoiler-free for a little while. It's kind of a tricky one to not spoil, so we definitely will have a spoiler section at the end, but if you haven't seen it yet, don't worry, we won't be spoiling it.
There were 3 murdered young women, or really just teenagers.
Yeah, high school. I think it's 13, 15, and 16 or something like that.
We're trying to figure out if the man that has been charged is guilty.
He seems guilty.
He seems very guilty because he's bald.
Yeah.
He seems very guilty because he's bald. You can't.
Yeah.
Then he has like this weird vibe to him. I don't know how to describe
Yeah,
it.
he
He's
doesn't
like not taking it seriously.
Yeah. From the very beginning,
Yeah.
the prosecution is like, we have so much evidence against
Yeah,
this
we
guy.
have so much.
Yeah.
Like we can match him with like this video footage and everything, even though he's kind of hiding his face. You can see his eyes, whatever.
Yeah. And so we should say the Red Rooms of the title refers to dark web red rooms, which are like torture. They're like torture murder rooms on the dark web.
Yeah, classic.
And this guy was live streaming the murders of these 3 young women on there. And yeah, so they have 2 of the videos in evidence at the start of the movie, and they have like, he's wearing a mask and a thing, but they say that his body language is like, seems like this guy. You can see his eyes through the mask, and it looks like this guy. Stuff like that.
Red Rooms and just streaming on the dark web is such a kind of like a mythology. There's such a mythology to it, especially growing up when the dark web was initially starting and gaining attention with rumors and whatever that people would say.
Right.
Where I remember being in high school and people would say stuff like, oh, there's really creepy shit going on. Like if you were to go into these little, just these websites where you don't know how to get to them, but then if you do get sent the link, whatever, you show up and you get streamed like this really just demonic shit, basically.
Yeah, the guardrails are off.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's this thing where like snuff films and the Red Room things, sometimes they get listed as being like hoaxes or like myths.
Yeah.
But then other times it's like, no, they exist and they're real.
Yeah, I was always obsessed with the idea when I was younger because it's one of those, like the curiosity of it. Like, it's just when you know you're not supposed to see something, you want to go out and look for it, just because people tell you not to do it. And there were so many snuff films circulating around, I don't know, maybe the late 2000s, early 2010s, kind of that time period. I would find snuff films when I was younger because they weren't hard to find.
Yeah, you know they're not a myth because you've seen them.
They were, because, the one lunatic, one ice pick, and then it was like 2 something, 1 hammer or something. But those were very clearly real, and then, we have...
yeah, there's like documentaries.
Yeah, there's documentaries.
Don't Fuck with Cats documentaries about the lunatic ice pick one.
Yeah. Very good documentary series until the last bit.
Yeah, the ending ruined it.
Yeah, really fucking stupid. But it was very clearly a thing that was happening. So you see those that are available on the regular search engines, you can find them. But then it's there's always the idea of like even more being out there or even more fucked up shit that was just buried somewhere and you had to go dig it out. So I've never seen anything else really handle Red Rooms like this before. I don't think ever.
Yeah, and they give you like a little explanation for what it is in that opening courtroom section, but they don't like overly hold your hand. The
They
movie
don't.
definitely treats you like you're an intelligent adult.
Thank God.
Yeah, because a lot of movies, like, as we were watching this, we both kept being like, an American movie wouldn't do this.
No.
Or if they did, it would be like, it would be a lot faster. They would stealth things out, not just with the like dark web stuff, but with like the main character and her intentions and her like her motivations and goals and whatnot. Like she's a very like oblique character in a fascinating way.
I can't stop thinking about that character.
Yeah,
it's
it's an incredible central character.
Yeah, like she's so open to interpretation.
Yeah.
More than anything I can think of this year, I think.
Oh yeah, most
Yeah.
complicated like protagonist I've seen in a while. Because a lot of times
Yeah.
the protagonist is like the least interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of times it's like
Absolutely.
the little side character who's in like a scene or two who's more interesting.
Yeah.
Because they want the protagonist to be likable and you want to be rooting for them. And there's no concern for that with her.
No.
And she's so specific. Even the things that aren't like up to interpretation, she's just so like, you can tell she has a fully constructed, fully realized internal life
Yeah.
that isn't even on screen, and then you see like glimpses of it.
Mhm.
Like the way that her she earns a living, it's this combination of like playing poker on the dark web and whatnot, mixed with being like a fashion model. Like that's already an interesting combination.
Absolutely.
And then there's just so many little details about her character, like oh she likes wine, or she likes champagne but not wine. She doesn't like avocados and she picks them out of her salad that she gets.
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't matter to the narrative, but it builds up to a really complete feeling character, and it leaves a lot on the table to analyze, specifically with her intentions, which I think we'll get into more once we get into the spoiler territory. She is introduced right away, like the very first couple of shots of the movie are her like waking up and going to the courtroom. But then we don't like learn anything about her until like a half hour into the movie. It's like they show us her right away, and then she's like in the she's not on the jury, she's in like the audience gallery
Right.
of the courtroom, and she's just there, and then we're just watching a like the opening arguments or opening statements of the prosecution and the defense for the next like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
And the movie feels like a like single location gripping like courtroom drama, and it's
It does.
really well done. And that chunk of the movie feels like a lot of people are comparing it to Anatomy of a Fall,
Yeah.
which is apt. Yeah.
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. And so the courtroom stuff is is dripping. the courtroom stuff is gripping. is what I was trying to say.
It's dripping with
It's
how
dripping with
gripping it
tension,
is. Yeah, it is.
It's dripping with gripping tension.
That works. Absolutely.
So the courtroom stuff is already really compelling on its own, and it feels like the whole movie could be that. Like it's a complicated enough case. The two lawyers feel like real characters.
They do.
Even though like after that opening scene, we don't really hear much from them.
I know. I was gonna say like
Yeah.
in that the first 20-30 minutes when it's those long shots that are really just they know how to catch your attention. They don't drop it at all.
Oh yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the other thing. Most of that sequence is a single shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
and,
impressive.
extremely.
Yeah.
And in it's in that like subtle way where it's not like
It's nothing fancy.
yeah, it's not like the car shot in Children of Men. That's what I always point
Yeah.
out as like the fancy oneer, or like Gravity, like the Alfonso Cuarón one takes, where it's really like
Right.
in your face, like oh we did this in one shot. Pay attention. You better notice that this is one shot.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing where it's more like it feels almost like individual shots, and just instead of cutting, the camera will like move to the next framing. It settles on like really nice framing with like really precise blocking of the characters and actors. You can tell it's like intricately rehearsed and very well planned out.
Yeah, the performances were
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
killer monologue, especially from
So
the prosecution, the woman playing that role. She was so good. She
Yeah.
feels like she's going to be the main character at that
She
point.
does.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah. After while we were watching that portion, I think I even said to you, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was just we were focusing on just this courtroom for the duration of the movie.
Yeah.
And maybe we go outside of it here and there, maybe there's flashbacks, whatever. But no, it was just that first bit. For the most part, like we do go back,
Yeah, we return
obviously.
to it, but
Yeah.
we return to it. I think on all the subsequent journeys, we're pretty locked into our main character's POV. Whereas that first scene, we're like completely detached from her POV.
We are.
The movie kind of pulls you more and more into her POV over the course of the movie. Like as she gets more obsessive and like kind of paranoid, it starts to feel more like first person-y. Even though it doesn't literally go first person, but we start to get like more impressionist almost.
Yes,
where,
especially with the sound.
Yeah, with the sound and also with like, because you start hearing like the screams from the snuff tapes, like worked into the soundtrack and stuff. Yeah, but then there's also the visuals where it does that like, what's it called, data moshing or whatever?
Yes, I think so.
Where the image like kind of distorts in that way, that like in that digitally kind of way. And then it also does some like color distortion stuff, which makes it feel like it's visually representing her like internal perception of things. Like there's a point where she's watching one of the snuff tapes and the whole screen goes bright red and it's like terrifying.
Yeah. Which actually reminds me, when there's been, like I know it wasn't this year, but Zone of Interest, like huge, seeing, just red. I like the sudden, I wouldn't call it a trend, but it's almost there, where it's just like the heavy reliance of red and very intense sound. And that's all you really need to get sucked into whatever it is that you're trying to feel, or what they want the audience to feel.
That's a great comparison, because they both use bright, blinding red and really intense audio as a way to like really send chills down your spine in a way that's like, they feel different from each other, and they feel so different from like other movies. Like, they each feel really unique. Absolutely. This movie in general feels really bold and really like, I don't know, like new and daring. Yeah,
it feels really fresh.
Yeah.
That's something I can't get out of my head when I think about it. I just haven't seen, because there is that very interesting discussion of genre for the movie, where we were going back and forth about, is this a horror movie? I don't know, because people recommended it as a horror movie.
Right, it popped into our radar as a horror movie, and it doesn't feel like a horror movie for the first like hour.
No, it doesn't.
Or even longer, because it's like 2 hours. It didn't feel like horror until the last like half hour, really.
Absolutely, yeah. It got advertised kind of as a horror movie. Like a lot of the people just making videos online would describe it as a horror movie.
Yeah, like film festival reactions are like, this thing's terrifying.
Yeah, terrifying. And then everyone in the comments would be like, you described it, but it doesn't sound like a horror movie to me. And I for a lot of the movie, I kind of agreed with that. I would think about it and be like, I don't know if this is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, it was like, it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, and we should be clear, it's not like a problem that it doesn't feel like a horror movie earlier.
It's not.
Like it's gripping as like a drama with like a drama thriller. But like kind of light on the thriller stuff even. Like it's about a really gruesome subject. But part of what makes it work so well is its restraint.
Yeah.
We talked about how it's restrained in like character motivations, like with that main character, but it's also really restrained in terms of just what you see. You see hardly anything. That's actually another way that's similar to Zone of Interest.
That's true.
It withholds so much visual information from you. You hear a lot, just like Zone of Interest. You hear a lot of like screaming and stuff, but you never see the tapes of these murders. The closest you get is you see like a quick glimpse of like the aftermath, the guy just like cleaning up at the end or something, but you don't see, like, you never see the victims, you never see, there's not a single like moment of violence that you see in this whole movie, and it feels incredibly violent.
It does,
which is like really impressive filmmaking.
It is, because like when you think about like the feelings it gives you when you look back at it, it's like, God, I feel like I just saw something very disgusting.
Makes you feel like sick to your stomach with how like gross it was, but you actually see nothing.
And that's something so impressive, because so many horror movies just rely on showing you, shock value.
Yeah, it's the opposite. Yeah, most of them, they show you a lot and you don't feel anything from it.
Yeah. Like sometimes you'd be like, oh, that looked really cool.
Right.
But but with this, it's like they really don't show you anything. They just show you colors and sound. Like that's the thing with Zone of Interest. They teach you to rely on sound. Yeah. And I feel like this one does that very well too, because at first you're just hearing things and whatever, but that just continues like on and on. So you learn to really rely on your hearing to understand what's happening and what they're watching. Because there's like that one point too when the main character goes outside of where they're actually watching something.
Right.
And they're also only really hearing it.
Yeah, the audience and the characters are both only hearing it at that moment.
Yeah.
We're both outside the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where the thing is being shown.
Yeah.
And we see people like fainting from watching it.
That's right. I almost forgot about that. Yeah, they do. One dude like does faint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I think he had like a heart attack. Like I think it was
Oh my
even more than a
God.
faint. Yeah, because they like carted him into an ambulance and everything.
You're right.
Yeah, they had like
Oh my
EMTs
God.
rush in.
You know, the less you're shown something and the more it's just hinted at, the more terrifying it is because your brain
Yeah.
just fills it in for you.
Yeah, it's that like power of
Yeah.
imagination thing.
Yeah.
Old movies had the limitations of like heavy censorship, like the Hays Code and stuff like that,
Yeah,
where there was
that's
so much they couldn't show. And that was a problem. We shouldn't have censorship like that. But it did kind of force filmmakers to get creative and find ways around that.
Yeah.
And so they learned to rely on like mining the viewer's imagination, like
Yeah.
guiding their imagination in the right direction, letting them fill in the blanks what they couldn't actually show.
You know, there's all those examples of filmmakers being given not as much of a budget and not as many resources, and they end up thinking of very almost revolutionary ways of filmmaking. And there's so many other directors that get given all of the funds possible. Like they get all the money, all the resources, whatever. And then it feels like their work kind of suffers for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The comparison I always love to do is to compare like the Raid, the first Raid movie, the budget of that to the budget of like Grown Ups. You know,
Oh,
the Adam
God.
Sandler movie. It's crazy how astronomical.
Oh,
or just like
God.
any Marvel movie too.
Yeah.
As like a more like I guess zeitgeisty comparison.
Yeah, no, that's true though, because you know, they get an endless amount of money to make those Marvel movies and everything like that, the big blockbusters, and you would think more money would be equal to the quality of it, and it just drops instead.
Yeah, no, it never is.
Yeah, no, never.
Qu'est-ce qui vous a motivé à assister au procès?
J'étais curieuse. J'en profite, j'ai un petit mot à dire à ces groupies. Ben, on vous voit. Vous devriez avoir
Even though the character we're watching is actually seeing it, it feels like we're also experiencing that with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also that opening scene gives us enough context to fill in the gaps. Like during the opening statements, the prosecutor is telling us what happened in those videos.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a little bit. Like we learn about specific injuries and stuff. And I think that helps paint the mental picture with the sound later on.
Right.
Once we're hearing it.
And then they do focus on specific body parts, especially the jaw of the one girl.
With the braces.
With the braces.
Yeah, which is
the
a fucked
teeth.
up visual.
And that's one thing they do show you.
Yeah, but only in like a still image.
Like
it's
a
still
very
so
still,
restrained, yeah.
And only for a few seconds.
Yeah, and it's really
Yeah.
important to show that because the braces come back into play later on.
They do.
In like a different way that we won't get into, but it's fucking freaky when it happens. That scene
really
was
is.
that was kind of like where it started shifting into horror. I think it was
Yeah.
like when the braces came into play, and we'll talk a little more about that later on.
Yeah.
But around there is when it starts to get more horror, and then it's just like so tense. Like I was feeling such like a grip of anxiety
Yeah.
throughout that last stretch of the movie. Very like deeply unsettling.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I just, it's so rare for me to feel that with movies. But
Yeah.
it just feels like your heart starts beating so fast, and you just feel like rocks in your gut, kind of.
Yeah.
Very, very visceral. The feeling. Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like I remember just constantly feeling like I was on the edge of my seat, and you know, I kind of guessed that we weren't going to see anything really. But still, it's like you're still reacting to it like you are going to see something.
Yeah, and it almost feels like a threat that the movie is going to show you something at some point.
Yeah.
Like it almost feels like they've been restrained so far, but are they going to stay restrained? So you're like bracing yourself constantly for like if they're about to cut to some really fucked up imagery. So it keeps you really on edge of like, what am I about to see?
Absolutely.
At least on a first watch. It's so unique in the way that it's frightening. Like it doesn't feel like I hesitate to say that it's like more effective than other horror movies. It's more effective than a lot of horror movies.
Yeah.
But it feels like so different. Like it's going for a different thing, like a different type of terror, and it's thoroughly succeeding at that.
Yeah. Like there are a couple other movies this year, or maybe like the two really. I mean, like Long Legs was...
Long Legs and The Substance
Yeah,
are the two
Substance.
really good ones from this year. Yeah.
But it's just totally outside that. Like you can't really, like aside from being in the horror genre, like you can't put them next to each other. They just approach the genre in such a different way.
Yeah, this is the artsiest of those three, of the three horror standouts. It feels very like, it feels very European.
Yes.
It's actually not. It's French. It's in French, but it's French Canadian, so not quite European. But it feels very much like other comparisons we mentioned, like Anatomy of a Fall, Zone of Interest. I was thinking of Uncut Gems at one point during the gambling sequence at the end.
That's hilarious.
But I was kind of like, they did this better than it feels like the same type of tension that they're trying to get from when he's like watching basketball and he's got the big bet on it. The sequence toward the end where she's playing poker. And I want to say, the poker was very well done in this.
Yeah, I was
Poker
impressed.
It's like so many movies get poker wrong and they just like don't put any effort into it. And this, they did such a good job with it. It's fully believable. It's realistic. I wanted to also mention, I kept thinking of, and this is a huge compliment for me, I kept thinking of Krzysztof Kieslowski movies, which is like the biggest compliment that I can give to a horror movie.
Who's that?
He's the guy who did the Three Colors trilogy.
Oh, that
so
one.
like
Okay.
white, blue, and red, or it's blue, white, red is the order.
Okay.
And he did like the Decalogue and the Double Life of Veronique, like really great dramas with like really layered characters and really complex themes. And it was making me think of like a horror, true crime version of like his kind of style.
That's fascinating.
Which is because his movies are like some of the best of all time in my mind, so that's like a big compliment.
Yeah, all of those movies have been in my watch list for years.
They're all so good. They're all like, they're all up there. They're all-timers, Oh, he also did like a short film about killing, which is probably his closest one to this, because it's about like, killing. It's about like murder and capital punishment and stuff.
Like even after we first watched the movie, we were already like trying to compare it to different things.
Yeah.
And it was...
And it still feels so unique, even with all these like points of comparison.
Yeah, even then it's still its own unique thing.
Yeah.
Because even when you make the comparison, it's not quite there. It's like, oh, it was like certain parts remind me of this thing, but it's like puzzle pieces, you know? Like this director, and we were surprised seeing that he did 2 other feature films.
He has 2 other features. One is called Fake Tattoos, and the other is called Nadia Butterfly.
But very exciting new director to discover, even though he's been... But all the other features were very like close together.
Yeah, I think the oldest feature was like 2017.
Maybe, yeah.
Something
Could have
like
been
that.
a little after that,
Maybe
but maybe,
2019.
yeah.
Somewhere in that range, 2010s at least.
Yeah, and
so he's relatively new. Pretty young guy, I guess.
I hope so. I hope he's not old.
Hope he's not old and bald.
Yeah, I don't want old.
He better not be bald.
He better not self-report in this movie. I never trust a bald person. Not ever. But like bald men, bald women, I don't care if they're bald. I don't trust them. Because that's when you know, like the evil just penetrates their hair. Like it just gets rid of it.
The hair runs away because it's so evil.
It does, yeah. It just runs away, it knows. So then after the hair runs away, there's no protection. And then it just like...
The helmet is gone.
Yeah.
Oh, I did want to say though, I thought that guy, that killer guy, beyond being bald, I thought he gave a really good performance.
He did.
It was impressive because I don't think he says a single word in the whole movie. Should we move into spoilers, do you think?
I think so, because it's really hard not to talk about spoilers in this one.
We've been tiptoeing around a lot of stuff. We're going to go ahead and get into spoilers now. For those of you who haven't seen it yet, big recommendation. If you love a good, like, restrained, like, creepy thriller, but one that takes its time. You got to be patient. If you're looking for the blood and the guts, you're not going to get in this one. It's all about, like, tension and unease.
Yeah.
It's a real slow burn. But it's not sometimes people say slow burn and they mean like, oh, it's like slow in a bad way until it gets good, but this is like gripping from the beginning.
It is.
It just changes its focus and its feeling and tone as it moves along in a really interesting way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I think is also very impressive about this is most of the time when you recommend a slow burn to someone, you have to say, hey, like
stick with it.
Yeah, stick with it. I know, like it.
You're gonna want to turn it off.
Yeah.
Don't. You're not gonna be able to turn it off.
No.
You're not gonna be able to look away. And now we'll get into some spoilers for those of you sticking around. Either you've seen it or you don't care about spoilers. But yeah, I want to talk more about the main character because she's fascinating.
I love her.
Yeah.
I love the writing behind her character and the performance. She's so fantastic.
It's a perfect performance for this character because so much is internalized.
Yeah.
And she's very restrained. And the writing for this character is just, she's so like inscrutable. Like you don't know what she's thinking at any moment, which sounds like it could be a bad thing, but it's not because what she's doing is so interesting. Every step of the way. It's always really clear what she's doing, but it's like never clear why she's doing it.
Yes.
All the way to the end. But in a like a really like compelling way, not in a like confusing way, not in a like unfleshed out way, in a really thought-provoking way where it's like, what are her intentions here? So now that we're in spoilers, let's specifically talk about like her kind of final act. Or like, I guess like that whole like last act of the movie is she dresses up like one of the victims in court in a terrifying scene. The way she's like staring straight ahead as she's like putting the thing on is so chilling. It's all in like her eyes, and then that smile with the braces, so creepy.
Fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
Cause
and that's a type of like scare that I've never seen.
Yeah, no, never.
I don't think it could even like, you need so much context for that to be scary. Like it's not like a jump scare where you can just like pick it up and plop it in another movie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Someone putting on a school jacket, that's not scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point because it really is all about the build up and the context and everything.
Yeah.
And just knowing how much weight that carries when she goes in there and does that. So at first she doesn't have the contacts in, so you're kind of like, for me at least, I was going back and forth. I was like, okay, is she gonna like actually fully commit to this?
Yeah, because you see the wig, but she waits to do the rest of it until she's in the room looking at the guy. Yeah.
You don't see the like the emblem of the school.
Yeah, it's under her like overcoat thing.
Yeah. And so with the wig, I was like, okay, maybe she's trying to pull off mimicking those traits, but I'm not entirely sure because it wasn't entirely blonde. It was almost there. It was like a light brown, whatever. But then she just keeps going and going, and she goes through that metal detector or whatever and has the braces.
You see the braces come out of her pocket.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, she's really going for it. And it was so wild because I was, in the moment, I was trying to figure out why she was doing that.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying so hard to figure out, like, why are you committing yourself so
and you really have no idea in the moment.
Yeah, you don't.
And in the movie, smartly, it provides that that Clementine character, her, like, maybe friend is too big a word, but the other person who she's, like, hanging out with, who's into the case. And so it almost seems like that provides like one possibility for why she's doing it, like, oh, maybe she's also obsessed with this killer. And I feel like that's like an assumption that some audience members are just going to naturally have based on that association, but she never comes right out and says it. She's very clearly obsessed with the case, but it's not clear in what way she's obsessed. And it's not clear if she's obsessed with the killer or the victims or both or neither or you know, anything. Like none of that's clear.
You know, she hyperfixates on so many different things with poker and her job and everything. So when I was trying to figure out what her motivations were, I was like, is she just really committed to trying to get the evidence for the jury and the people that were involved and the family members and everything?
Yeah.
And then I was going back and forth between that and like, oh, is she also one of those people that gets too involved with like similar to a parasocial relationship, where, you know, there's that huge thing that's happened since like the beginning of the Tumblr era of especially young girls that would do that very fangirl thing, but towards serial killers and everything.
Oh, that was happening pre-internet too.
Yeah.
They were always like killers, like, or just like guys in prison in general. They get like groupies somehow.
They do.
Yeah.
They get letters and everything. They just
They get married and stuff to people on the outside. Yeah.
It's so bizarre. I remember being really young and looking into people who were obsessed with the Columbine killers on blog sites and all that. And I remember their blogs being very just focused on very gory shit all the time. Like, you would find actual pictures of like corpses and just all out violence, whatever, and then they would share all the photos and videos from like the CCTV shit and all that, and they would write their like fan fiction about if they were to start a romance with like serial killers. It's like, what are you doing? It reminded me a lot of that one character that's hanging on to the main character.
Yeah, the Clementine character.
The Clementine, yeah.
Because that is her to a T. That
Yes.
she got like a romantic attraction to this killer.
Yeah.
And it seems like the main character might have that too.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the moment, like I think I mentioned at one point, oh, is she doing this to like try to get evidence for the families?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be that. I think like it leaves you with so much to chew on mentally and to like debate or just like have conversation about, which is great. It's so good when the movie does that.
It's so fantastic.
Because you can say like, oh yeah, she is like, because she's like trying to get a reaction from him, like trying to get a smile out of him, and she doesn't. She's smiling at him, and it seems like, oh, she just wants to be noticed by him.
Yeah,
you can read it that way.
Both ways.
But you can also read it as like, that's her getting confirmation for herself. This guy's definitely the killer.
Yeah, that was the first reaction you had, I think.
Yeah, I think because only the killer would have reacted that way to her.
Absolutely.
You know, if the guy's innocent, he's not gonna have a pleasant reaction to her looking like one of the victims.
What the fuck are you doing? Yeah, absolutely.
So it's almost like, and so when she does that, it's in between when the dark web guy who's going to auction off the last torture video, he says, "Let us know when you're ready." She goes and does that, and then she says, "Ready." So it's like before she would cross that final line of like, you know, doing this auction, spending all the money she has and everything.
Yeah.
She needed like that definitive proof for herself, which is his reaction in the moment. But obviously that reaction isn't like, it would be like hearsay or whatever in court. It wouldn't be admissible evidence to convict him, something like that. But it's enough for her to go, okay, this guy definitely did it. I have no doubt about it. Now I need the actual proof. So I think that's, the timing of that is really important. They're like, let us know when you're ready. She does that, and then she comes home and immediately types, ready.
Like, I was like, yeah, she was confirming it for herself, but that is exactly when she chooses to go like the full way. And like does it.
And it's really subtle. And it's also like still not definitive. Like that's like one interpretation of it, but you could also read it as that other thing we were saying where she just wanted to be noticed by him.
Yeah.
And like
there's tons of different interpretations.
And at the same time it kind of feels like it is both almost. Because
it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like let's talk about her reaction to the snuff film.
Yeah.
Because she seems to like really enjoy it. And it's like
she didn't flinch away from it.
Yeah, she was locked in. And then when it ends, she's like drinking champagne to like celebrate.
Yeah.
And you could be like, okay, she's celebrating getting the evidence that she needed. Because that last video is the one that made it more definitive that it was that guy.
Right.
So maybe she's locked in because she needs to see the moment when like you see more of his face or whatever. Right? Like that's the way you can say, oh, her intentions were good.
Yeah.
But she does seem to be like enjoying it at the same time. And so I think I think my read on her is that she is like sick and does enjoy this stuff, but she has some amount of empathy still for the family.
I feel like since I'm the person among the two of us that is I have to like look at it and be like, I've also wanted to see things that I shouldn't really want to see technically. But when I've watched it, it's like I didn't get any particular amount of enjoyment out of it whatsoever. But there was this sense of like I've seen something that a lot of people haven't seen, and I know that people are now like, because before it's like you see violence in movies.
Mhm.
You see violence in like very brief like news reports, whatever, but not
Right,
really.
and like war footage.
Yeah,
that kind of
war
context,
footage.
Yeah.
It's like, but when you see an actual snuff film, that's real fucking violence. Like it's not comparable to anything else. So when you see it, it's like you're actually seeing what it looks like. It's not being just, I don't know what the word is. It's just not being censored in any particular way. Like, you know what it looks like now. You know what I mean?
It's just blunt.
Yeah, very blunt. So now you can look at anything else that tries to replicate it, and you can say, I know what it actually looks like, and this isn't as realistic as they're trying to make it out to be. Because I think a lot of media we see conditions us to think that we actually know what it looks like.
Right.
And then when we see it, it's like, oh, that's a lot different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how like an audience's perception of violence has changed. Like if you look back at like old silent films, when someone gets shot, they like throw their hands in the air and they like spin in a circle and like they really ham it up when they die.
And they do.
And like back in the day, people didn't know if that's what it looked like when someone got shot. You know, they had no point of reference for it.
Yeah. And you brought up, I think Schindler's List.
Yeah, Schindler's List. When they get shot, they don't go flying like a bullet always does in other movies. They just like crumple. They drop straight down when they get shot.
And that's what happens. Like, I watched that Band in America compilation of like.
You've seen so many different. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like a compilation. I don't know if it's even called. I guess it's technically still snuff films if it's death on video, whatever.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lot of different videos compiled together that are just banned in America. I don't know how true that is.
I mean, you saw it in America.
Yeah,
so.
I did.
And you like rented it from the Alamo.
Yeah, I did.
So it must not be that bad.
But it was all old, so maybe back then it was banned.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, like the execution videos I told you about where it was like political, like it was like prisoners of war basically.
Right.
And they were all like tied to trees and they were getting executed. They did just drop. Like it was very instantaneous. It feels like something people like everyday life, like you would feel like you would know what it looks like, but really you don't.
Yeah, and you can say, okay, the main character has that same like intrigue into the reality of things.
Yeah.
That's the way you can look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. There's definitely a chance that she's into it, like.
Oh, absolutely.
On like a more fucked up level than that as well. But then you can read it as, oh, she's just looking for evidence.
Yeah.
But I don't know. She definitely crosses the line in certain areas, like when she's showing. That Clementine character, the video, she's already watched them, and she's still like, we're gonna watch these, like all of them.
Yeah, because she's showing the Clementine character, she's showing hesitation, and then she like goes ahead and just clicks it, like right
she says like wait, or like that's enough or something after the first video, and then she still watches the second one, and she's rewatching it, so she's not just like looking at it for evidence the second time, like there's no way.
Yeah, no.
She already saw it, and the police already have it also. The lawyers already have it, so there's nothing that like be gleaned from that.
Yeah, do you think it's like a voyeuristic kind of deal, or do you think it's like sadistic? Do you think there's
well, so there's this thing where it's like it's almost like she wants to be one of the victims, not the killer. Because when she's dressing up like the victim, right? It's kind of like she's taking on that persona and like wants to know what it feels like to be in that situation. Maybe it's that thing where like she's a little sociopathic and like doesn't have that like kind of empathy, so she's trying to resort to extremes to know what it feels like to feel something or to feel that specific kind of like terror or something. That could make sense. Because like even after she gets what she needs in the courtroom, she keeps dressing like the victim.
Right.
Like she goes to the victim's bedroom and like takes a selfie in the bed and everything. So that's maybe an extension of that. And maybe that's what she's doing when she's watching those videos, is trying to put herself in the shoes of that victim to like embody it more.
Right.
And that kind of goes in line with the model mentality, possibly. Because it's like a form of, it's not quite acting, but it is like adopting a persona. She's like transforming herself. She exercises for it. She puts on wigs and different outfits and masks and stuff.
Right.
Like for that one photo shoot, she is wearing like a mask and whatnot. So she's not wearing a mask when she pretends to be the victim, but she is wearing like a social mask, which is the wig and the school uniform and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so much going on in this movie.
That reminds me, like, how do you think the poker part plays into it? Is it just like the gambling aspect, like taking?
I think someone who is like playing poker, because she's not playing like normal poker. She's not on like a legal poker website. She's on like dark web poker. Like she's playing with Bitcoin.
It's funny because at first I didn't realize that's what she was doing.
Yeah.
I thought it was a legal one.
So like I guess there are like crypto casinos that aren't like 100% illegal, but they're definitely operating in like questionable like areas, and they're very much like they could disappear at any moment, and you'll lose any money you deposited. They're very much like, usually they're like hosted in some like tiny island somewhere, and they're trying to use the laws of that little island instead of wherever the actual like place is. So people who are accessing it are like technically violating their local laws.
Right.
And so they'll take your money, no problem, and then if you try to withdraw, they'll go, "Oh, you're not allowed to use our site where you are, so we're confiscating your winnings or whatever." Like if you do win, yeah, that's what it happens a lot. And then sometimes people get paid out, but they have to jump through all these hoops. Like I tried one at one point. I tried this thing called Bovada, which I don't even think is still around. And it wasn't crypto. Actually, I think they did take crypto, but I was able to deposit like just with a debit card too.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah.
And I won some money on there. I won like $300 or something. And I tried to withdraw it, and it took like months. It took like 6 months or more to actually get my money. And they had me jump through all these hoops. First they were saying they wouldn't do it at all.
Oh, I'd be so
And then I ended up having to do this weird thing where they mailed me a check, and it was a check that couldn't be cashed in the U.S. And the customer service told me to lie to my bank and say that it was a check from like a deceased relative, and they gave me this like story to like feed to the bank. I was like, I'm not doing that.
What the fuck?
I think I eventually got my money by having them send like a wire to like a Western Union, and I had to like go over to a Western Union and get it that way, and it took like weeks to process and like all this weird shit. So like it's not good. It's not like fully illegal, but it's definitely not above board either. The way she was playing poker is definitely not. I don't know like what the gambling laws are in Canada. I know they have some casinos, but I don't know about like online gambling there. But definitely, if she's playing with Bitcoin as like the gambling numbers, then it's definitely like not the most legit gambling. So I think that it fits the character of someone who would know how to get on the dark web, who is like well versed in crypto, because I guess that's like usually how they spend money on the dark web, I guess, right? It's usually in crypto rather than. It fits the character as like something she would probably know how to do.
Absolutely.
This person who would be able to get on the dark web would know this kind of stuff.
Very tech savvy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, tech savvy. That's another thing this movie does so well, is it feels so fresh and like you said, but like specifically like modern, and like with all the tech stuff, it all feels so like well researched and accurate in a way that a lot of the movies that cover these subjects feel like cheesy and like off. Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Like a lot of the movies that cover this stuff, like Megan is Missing or whatever.
I was just thinking about that.
Shit like that, where it's like, oh, you have no idea what you're talking about, filmmaker. This guy knows his shit, the director. Pascal Plante or whatever.
I think so, I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah, you're absolutely right, because that was one thing that pissed me off so much with Megan is Missing, where it felt like a 90-year-old's version of what teenagers sound like. And it took me out of it so much. It was so painful to watch and listen to. And then something like this, it's like, oh, I know those people. Yeah. Like, that's someone I've hung out with or whatever, and like, there's parts of myself that I see there, because I like know how to fucking, like everyone in this generation for the most part, if they're into any type of like being on the computer, whatever, like they know how to do a lot of this shit. So it felt like a very much needed step in the right direction. Because we've needed stuff like this for a while. Like, just mirror what our generation is, I don't know, just the way that we've grown up and what we are, I don't know, just what our daily lives consist of. Because so many people that I was growing up around just were naturally just they took an interest in technology and whatever, crypto and all that, and they're just like so effortlessly into it. Like, I don't know, it just seemed...
Yeah, because this main character is not like some cheesy super hacker like person. She's just like, she is tech savvy. She's been around it. She knows how to use it.
Yeah.
But she's using stuff that's all like accessible. She uses like websites that you can log on that aren't on the dark web to like find people's passwords and stuff like that, for people's addresses. Like, it's very realistically handled.
It is, yeah.
And I like that, like, it's conveyed. It's like you have to like multitask to absorb it all. Where like there's a news broadcast happening that's like giving you details on on like the family and the victims and stuff like that. And at the same time, we're watching like how she gets the mother of the victims like Wi-Fi password and stuff. Yeah, it's like happening simultaneously. Really well done.
Yeah, a lot of little details that really just add to how realistic it feels. Like the dual monitor setup, like that fucking...
And the way she uses it too, it's like, we've seen the dual monitor in like the super hacker like, stereotype. Yeah, but it's not that. It's like she has the news on one while she's like browsing other websites on the other.
Like
very realistic.
The stock value and whatever.
Yeah. At the end of the day, she does deliver the audience to the victim's family, and it is what gets the guy convicted. So it seems like, oh, she's going vigilante and like doing this really bold thing, really like sacrificial, like sacrificing all of her money, losing her job and her livelihood, like going to extreme lengths to for justice, basically, right? So it's like that. But on the other hand, it's like she does seem to enjoy this like video.
She
and
does.
The torture videos and the snuff component of it. And also, like, while she's dropping off the evidence for the benefit of the victim's family, she's still dressed as her daughter.
Yeah, she's still taking the
still
selfie.
Going into the dead daughter's bedroom and taking a selfie and, like, holding up, like, a peace sign or whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, she did pose for it.
So it's this really fascinating contradiction of, like, good and evil kind of things going on. Like, what is her reason for taking the selfie in the daughter's bedroom? You know, because you can like rationalize her other actions. It's like she's going really far, but you can spin it in a way where it's like helping achieve a net good.
Right.
But the selfie in the daughter's bedroom, it's like that is purely for like her own kicks, it would seem.
Yeah, I was for so long, like right at that moment, and then from then and onward, I just couldn't figure out why the fuck she did that.
Yeah.
It was so it was terrifying.
Yeah.
In its own unique way, where it's just like, yeah, what motivation could someone have to take a selfie like that?
Yeah.
Because there are those communities that really, it's like a circle jerk for serial killers and like the people that have fetishes for them, where they, like, I could see something like that easily getting put into a circle like that and it getting a lot of praise and recognition, whatever.
Yeah.
And I can't really think of any other reason for someone to do that besides like their own personal kind of their own like kicks or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what else it could be.
The only thing I can think is that maybe it's a way to like try to take the heat off of herself when they find that the video leaked.
Right.
To like stop the people who sold her the video from going after her, since they know her name and where she lives and everything.
Right.
Maybe she's like, oh, a person who turned over the evidence wouldn't take a selfie in the daughter's bedroom, so it must not have been me. Maybe that's what it is. That's like the only way I can think to like spin it in a positive way.
Yeah.
But I think it's more likely that she just is getting like some kind of twisted kick from it.
Yeah, I think so.
I think a big part of the movie is like people have dark sides, right? And she's like indulging in her dark side.
Right.
But she's not fully giving into it in the way that the Chevalier guy, the killer guy, did.
Right.
That guy fully embraced his dark side and is doing this twisted stuff. She's like teasing her dark side or like satiating her dark side, but still doing this like good deed at the same time. It's almost like a way that she's justifying all the fucked up stuff she's doing for her own satisfaction.
Yeah.
By doing this good act as a way to like redeem it for herself, almost like how religious people go to confession or whatever. Kind of like that.
It's a good
Or like how
comparison,
like
yeah.
lots of fucked up people will go do charity.
Oh, a
Like
lot
how
of the
like that
time, yeah.
Jimmy Savile guy was like a huge philanthropist, and like lots of other examples. People who
Yeah.
like donate tons of money to charity, but meanwhile they're like the most disgusting, depraved people
Yeah.
ever. It could be something like that, but on like a smaller scale.
Yeah.
She's doing this act of good to make up for how like fucked up her actual impulses are.
Mhm.
Could be that, like a guilt feeling almost.
Yeah, because it is that if you want to like bring it to a bigger scale, it's just how multifaceted people are.
Yeah.
Because even if someone's not entirely fucked up and also a good person, it's like people just constantly have these different sides to them that a lot of us never see
Yeah.
at all. And it's like, you know, whenever a killer gets caught or someone that's done anything fucked up, like just killed their wife or something, I don't know, all the neighbors go, oh, he was
Yeah.
such a good guy. He was
The
so...
defense lawyer even said that in this movie. They were like, he's a
Yeah.
model citizen. He's never been, he never even got a parking ticket. Yeah, really fascinating, complex, layered main
Yeah.
character. Yeah.
Mhm.
Really great character work.
Yeah, I can't stop. That's like one character for the longest time. I can't remember the last time I've thought about a character so much.
Yeah, specifically like a character's like internal motivations.
Yeah.
You don't often have to like scrutinize a main character so much. Yeah.
Because everyone just treats you like, oh, they're stupid. We have to
Yeah.
give them.
They either spell it out,
Yeah.
or they want the character to be always likable and like relatable.
Yeah, that's
they want you
one
to.
thing.
They want the character to do stuff that you would do in that situation.
Mhm.
This character's not that.
Yeah, and we talk
Yeah.
about that so much just between the two
Yeah,
of us.
we do,
where-
yeah.
Like,
Because characters are so much more interesting when they're not likable all the time. When they're not like role models.
just a fascinating movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. When I recommended it for us to watch,
Yeah.
I still didn't anticipate what we were gonna
Yeah,
see.
it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like very like no expectations really going into this. It was such a cool surprise.
It really
Didn't
was.
expect to be so blown away by this. So a big recommendation for Red Rooms. Check it out. If you enjoy this kind of stuff, you can stick around on this channel. You can support the Patreon if you want. It's a newly launched thing. You get to hear about videos ahead of time. Sometimes you get to see videos a little bit early. Things like that. And that Patreon is for both this channel and the main channel, Brickwall Pictures. So just one subscription gets you inside info and early videos and whatnot for both channels.
Bye.
Bye, Baldy.
Bye, bald. Don't get bald. Never shave your head. Don't let it happen. Get serums and whatever. Keep your hair growing.
Get snake oil. Buy
Yeah,
snake oil.
snake oil. Make sure you don't end up letting the evil get through your skull.